Blog Talk Radio.
Awake from the dream of the picture you painted. If you want it, proclaim it. Say it loud and proclaim it. Make sure you leave with something more than you came with. You will achieve, fueled by the will to attain it. So no more complaining, proclaim it.
Peace and blessings, everyone, and welcome to ProclaimIt Radio. I'm your host, Sister Akila Muhammad from Washington, D.C. ProclaimIt Radio is about positivity, good news, growth, health, life, and love. We promote people who are proclaiming their space in this world and exuding the greatness that they possess inside. We will feature entrepreneurs, go-getters, and people who are representing their gifts to the world in a positive light. Today we have a wonderful lineup of auditors who will share with us the healing power that we can find in auditing. Auditing is a technology created by the founder of the Church of Scientology, L. Ron Hubbard. An auditor is one who listens and assists those who have experienced past trauma or upset in identifying damaging moments of physical and emotional pain recorded in their mind. Once these incidents are handled, the person regains more of their analytical power and experiences a better quality of life. So from improving the lives of individuals to increasing the strength of our brotherhood and our sisterhood, these auditors that we have are pure warriors, and we are truly blessed to have them come on our show today. So I'm going to give each of them about 30 seconds to introduce themselves before we begin. So I'm going to start with Brother Michael. How are you, sir?
Doing fine. Assalamu alaikum, family. And just a brief introduction to who I am. I am first a student of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan under the guidance of the Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad. And I'm also a NC artist, and that is my main gift that I do. I'm also part of the student youth ministry. I've been a part of that for some years now. And recently, since the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan has, released us to the church to study a tool that would better ourselves and help better our people, I did jump on that as well and studied to become a Dianetics auditor, fully trained and can certified to deliver the tool to brothers and our people in the community. So that is who I am.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that, sir. And we have Sister Maliya as well. So, Sister Maliya, if you could introduce yourself in about 30 seconds for us, that would be wonderful.
Assalamu alaikum. I'm Sister Maliya. I'm from Lynchburg, Virginia. I, too, am a student in many aspects. I am a student of the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as given to us by Minister Prenatal, and I also serve as a Dianetics auditor, and I'm also a Dianetic coordinator for my city. So I work to get the believers on course, and I work to get them involved in Dianetics and supervise them whenever they would like to be audited and participate in seminars.
Yes, ma'am. Well, praise be to Allah. As we can see, we have two powerhouses on the line for us today. So if anyone has any questions, feel free to call in at any time, and we'll have you answer. We'll have your question on the air, and we'll have our two auditors answer your questions as best as they can. But we're going to go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start out with you, Brother Michael, for the first question. And I gave a brief overview of what Dianetics is, but what does Dianetics actually mean, and why is Dianetics relevant?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. Dianetics, the word dia means through, and netics comes from the word nus, N-O-U-S, which means mind or soul. Dianetics is how the mind or the soul is affecting the body, or what the mind or soul is doing to the actual body. It's a study of the mind. And as we know, in the world, no one is, fresh or new, or no one is strange to, studies of the mind. People are always interested in how the mind works. There's so many millions of people who are on a spiritual journey in life, whether it be in religion or not. And there's a lot of people growing today to focus more on their body, their physical. So, I mean, these things have always been a part of the society, even in America. But I believe this tool specifically is so relevant and what it has to offer simply because of what Mr. L. Ron Hubbard said it does. It works. It just works. We know that, or some of us know, that the medical industry is a wicked, satanic industry. We know that the psychiatric industry is a wicked, satanic industry. And we also know that from the study of Mr. L. Ron Hubbard, his brothers in psychology, they are ineffective as well. And the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches on this. He says that, if you are so well studied up in your psychology and medical field, look at the condition of the world and the community. Are people still sick? Are people still mentally ill? You can walk up and down the streets and find brothers and sisters, human beings, just foaming at the mouth or homeless and just walking around wondering, just mentally and physically ill and sick. It's not covert, it's overt. You can very much see it in the community, in the society. So that's one of the reasons why a tool like this is so important, because, we can take care of our spiritual, we can take care of our physical, but, we need to take care of the mind. We have to take care of the mind, which is a part of the mental and the physical and the spiritual well-being of the human being.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, Sister Maliya, I actually want to ask you the same question, too, because I want to hear your point of view as well. And we gave a basic definition of what Dianetics is. But what does it mean, and why do you think that is relevant?
I would say that he gave a very good definition of Dianetics, and I will say that when people ask what does it mean, it goes a lot with, like he said about psychology and psychiatry in the medical field. Unfortunately, in today's society, a lot of people are trusting doctors less and less. It's unfortunate because the doctors have made it that way, but it's fortunate because people are starting to wake up to the idea that, things can be taken care of a lot through the way that you mentally take care of yourself, and people are also aware that of being more natural, and that has to deal with the body, which, of course, in order for anything to be right, you have to make sure that your body is correct as well. But a lot of the illnesses, they say in Dianetics that they said 70% of the illnesses that take place with us are all mental. So there's, diseases and illnesses like diabetes and stroke and heart attack and high cholesterol. And so there's this ideology that those things are just hereditary and that you're just going to get them just because. But Dianetics offers another perspective and says, how do you know that most of the things that we do, how do you know that the way that we are is not because of things that we've heard from our childhood? It's not because we're constantly used to hearing our grandmother say, oh, I have diabetes, or oh, I have this. If you're used to hearing that when you're a child, or somebody saying to you, you're going to get this one day, well, that goes into your mind. And so the things that are being fed to you start to take root into your mind. And since we know that the brain is what basically gives us the ability to make decisions, gives us the ability to make choices, gives us the ability to cognitively think, it's the very thing that negativity and all of the other things that happen to us, that's where everything gets stored. So Dianetics has offered the chance for people to not be hypnotized, not be given the answer to their problems, but instead it gives them the opportunity to find out the problems for them. So like he was saying, psychology has proven to be ineffective. I will say that I've studied some of psychology and then I studied Dianetics. I will agree that there's a lot of things that psychologists talk about and a lot of things that they study that I don't completely agree with, and a lot of things I don't agree with. And there are also some small key things that have some valid points. But when I studied Dianetics, I saw immediately that Dianetics actually puts the power in the person's hand. If I'm being audited and I'm being given the chance to talk about my problems or things that I've gone through in the past, that person who's auditing me is not suggesting to me what is wrong. They're telling me, you're asking me questions to get it out of me. So Dianetics actually empowers the person and gives them the ability to not feel weak in that moment. And if they are feeling weak in that moment, the auditor is there to provide that strength. So I consider it, like the name of the show, spiritual cleansing, but it's also, just cleansing on all levels because it helps you in every aspect of your life.
Yes, ma'am. And you just made me think of another question that I want to take to Brother Michael about putting it in perspective and having your own power. But I wanted to ask you, Brother Michael, a lot of people describe Dianetics as a form of therapy. And in the black community, we'll say things like, oh, that's black people don't get therapy. That's white people stuff. But how can we convince our people that this is something that is not just something that white people do or other people do, but we need healing as well. We need therapy. How would you go about explaining that to people so they don't feel threatened by maybe somebody getting in their business?
Yes, ma'am. Well, you know, as the minister, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us, and thank you for the question, we are a people of great emotion. And in the study guide that we're going into tonight, which is a perfect segue or a perfect time to study this, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan answers this question: where does emotion come from? He says the brain is not only an organ of intellect and logic, it is also the source of emotion. Emotions are brought to life in what is known as the limbic system. The limbic system is a collection of parts that constitute approximately 20% of the brain's area. But the forces of pride, fear, joy, grief, anger, lust, hatred, envy, jealousy arise from this region of the brain. These are all of the things that our people suffer from on a daily basis because we have gone through the worst human experience that any human being could come through, which is the transatlantic slave trade. The condition that we suffer from, sister, is the worst condition on the planet that any human being has ever seen. And though there's human suffering throughout the world, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad teaches us that mental slavery is far worse than physical slavery. So the physical slavery produced a mental condition in our people that we see. And in relation to our people, to help our people understand, even in religion, even in Islam, the nation of Islam, in Christianity, we have to understand what has been done to us. And I thank you for bringing up that question because, you know, if a person doesn't realize that we are still sick, if a person doesn't realize that he or she is still a slave, is still mentally suffering from conditions that go far beyond their birth date, if we don't understand the condition that we are in, then that person is going to be ineffective in getting themselves out of their present condition because they don't even realize that they need help in the first place. You see, how can a person be saved if they don't recognize the fact that they need to be saved? You know, so we really have to look within ourselves and be honest. Let's be real, brothers and sisters. Be for real. You know, when you look in the mirror, when you study the condition of your own family, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our fathers, you know, what was the state of mind that our mothers and fathers were in when they were laying down to have us? Were they perfect? Were they purified? Look what they made. Look, Allah came and intervened in our life to help us, but we still are not resurrected. We're not resurrected yet. We're in the process of resurrection. So in this process, we still need to keep a humble spirit and know and realize that we need help. We suffer from the forces of pride, fear, joy, grief, anger, lust, hatred, envy, jealousy. All of these are found within the mind. So if we don't realize that we need help today, now, then, you know, we're going to be in trouble.
Yes, sir. That's powerful right there because a lot of us don't feel like, oh, I don't have a problem, I'm good. And that is the problem, that we all have something that we can deal with, but we just don't think that we are the problem. And we know that if we want to improve our community, that we have to first improve ourselves. So I wanted to ask Sister Maliya another question based on what you have brought up before. Why is it important, or why is it different in Dianetics that we don't tell people what to think, or we don't tell them what their problem is. How important is it that we're giving them a safe space for them to explore their own problems and to deal with them, and to a safe space for them to deal with it in the correct way? How important is that?
I think that it's very important that you don't give people the answer, because we live in a world where answers and ideologies have been given to people. And so we're made to believe, what it is that we're told, and then come into the knowledge of it itself, which is why I admire the teachings of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, because when he was teaching us, one of the very things that he said was, everything that I'm saying, you should question it, and you should go research it, and you should find out that it's true for yourself. So that's what makes a lot of people that are in the nation, and for those who are listening who may not be in the nation, that's why we're so adamant about our belief, because we don't follow a truth that's like, oh, just because he said it, it's the truth. Anything that somebody tells you, even in mathematics, if they tell you that 1 + 1 is 2, you can believe it just because they're an expert teacher, just because they're a person that is an authority over you. But you also could disbelieve it if you did not continue to search it for yourself. So back to the same thing with Dianetics, it's kind of like if I'm told that, I'm having a problem, or there's a psychological issue that I'm going through, and, say maybe I'm going over something that happened to me in my past, I hurt myself or somebody hurt me, and I go and I tell that person that I'm auditing, oh, that's why you have migraines, or that's why you have this, then that makes you're stopping their ability to compute their own problem. You don't need to tell somebody, oh, that's why you have migraines, or that's why you always cry, is because, like you just said, when you were younger, your mother did this and the other to you. Now, that's not to say that the auditor doesn't know. Most of the times when somebody's getting audited, you as the auditor, you know what's going on with that person. There's been several times where I have gotten audited, and after I've gotten out of my session, I've asked the auditor, do you think that maybe that's why I'm afraid of this and that's why I'm afraid of that? She knows. But if she was to say yes or no, that would stop my thought process, because in that moment I'm sitting there computing, is this why, is that why? And as human beings, Allah gave us the ability to have free choice, and he also gave us the power to make decisions for ourselves. It's like the Bible says, ye are all God's children of the Most High. So if you can be just like him, that means that you have the power to dictate and make decisions in your own life. So if I'm, if something is going on with me, the whole point of me getting rid of this engram is because it's blocking me from being able to act to my fullest potential. So I need help from this person that's auditing me to help get this engram out so that I can return to my full potential. That's the whole goal of Dianetics, is to be able to reach your full potential again, to be able to reach, being able to be like God. So if I'm auditing and this person is telling me my problem, subconsciously that person is going to become an ally. They're going to become a natural support system. So that's why whenever you see people that, they say, oh, that girl still hasn't gotten over her mom or her dad dying for 10 or 15 years. A lot of that is not just because, oh, he or she loves mama. A lot of it is because that mother was an ally to that person. She comforted that person whenever they had a problem, whenever something was wrong. She was there telling them, oh, this is why. She was their brain. She was computing for them what their problem was. You ever hear mama's boy or mama's girl? She's thinking for her child. So when that person dies, a part of that person dies. So for 10 or 15 years later, that people still can't get over the death of somebody that they loved. And, it's easy for people to try to pacify that and say, oh, well, that's just because she loved them very much. But that's not true, because then that's taking away the fact that those other children love their mother just as much, but they're not as distraught because they had to go out and they had to think on their own, and they had to develop their own cognitive ability. So that's why they say it's very important, even in raising children, that you allow them to express themselves, because as a parent, you have this automatic halo effect. You have this automatic authority that if you say a certain thing to your child or suppress something in them, you are that authority figure. You're shaping the way that they think. So Dianetics, is a beautiful process, because it gives you that chance to go in, and it's just you and that auditor. And when your eyes are closed, it's you and that auditor. All they have to do is sit there and listen, and they're letting you compute your issues, but they're asking you questions. What are you seeing? What are you feeling? What do you think about this? And when you start feeling uncomfortable and you don't want to talk about it again, the auditor is comforting, and they make you go into it, and they let you know, hey, this is something that you have to overcome. So, it's very important that you don't compute for a person. It's the same concept as, don't do homework for somebody. Don't do somebody else's job, because every man and woman is equipped with the ability to take care of themselves. And that has been taken away from a lot of us, and Dianetics tries to restore that.
Yes, ma'am. That is so, so powerful and so, so true that throughout our life, being young people in school, we have homework assignments and things that are busy work, and just in general in this life that we live in this country, it's basically like there's a roadmap for life. And when something happens that is not on the roadmap, it's almost like our bodies and our minds, our whole world shuts down because we don't know what to do next. And for instance, when you were saying that maybe someone who lost a parent or somebody who was computing for them, when that person leaves, you have no idea what to do, and it seems as if nobody in the whole world understands what's going on, and we just kind of, like you said, we just kind of pacify people and push them on and say, well, just get over it. But anyone who's ever been told, just get over it, that doesn't help you to get over it. So that's one thing that I know that I've definitely seen and appreciate in Dianetics, that it's actually a safe space to release and to not get over it, but to heal from whatever is causing us turmoil. And I just wanted to take it to Brother Michael, and I wanted to ask you, who should get audited? I know some people think, oh, well, I've never been through a very traumatic experience, so I'm probably good. Who should get audited?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. We all should. There's things that people you look at and say, well, I've never been raped, never went to prison, never, with all due respect, never had my manhood tested, never been molested, haven't been in a real bad, serious, near-death experience in the car. But all of us were carried in the womb for 9 months. And I don't know about you, but I know my parents did not practice the teaching from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan of how to give birth to a God. The fasting that comes to the parents before they, have the child, conceive the child, the praying to God that God would, bless them to have a child to serve them, the spiritual studies and the proper knowledge that the woman applies her mind to for the 9 months. I don't know. My parents, I don't think I was a planned birth. So when you have a society like this, all of the madness that's going on in this society and how the woman is affected, just look at the children. Just look at the children that are produced. We should be, everywhere we look, we should see greatness. Greatness everywhere we look. We know there's potential greatness, but, we have a lot of wickedness in the society coming from human beings, whether great or small. So everyone should be audited because of the 9-month period in your mother's womb, what your mother thought, what your mother said, who said something to her, her emotions, her feelings, and black women in particularly. I mean, how many black women have gotten pregnant and in some way thought about getting rid of the child? My mother, for example, wanted to get rid of me and my brother. And all my life, I didn't feel that my mother's love was sincere. To this very day, I have a hard time feeling that my mother's love is sincere. I think it's fake and insincere in a lot of ways. And so I have this issue that I'm still searching to go into the womb to find and eradicate. But how many black women, for example, my mother wanted to get rid of me and my father, but she also committed, she had an abortion with her first child. And she was married, and she told us the story of how her husband begged her not to abort the baby. She aborted it anyway. So how many of us have been born in situations where our mothers didn't want the child, the father didn't want the child, or somebody was saying something negative to your mother because she was too young, or it's all kind of issues, brothers and sisters, but we all need to be audited, because even if you didn't have a lot of crazy stuff happening when you were 10 and 9, how many things took place with the spiritual, mental, and physical condition of your mother and father when you were in the womb?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I wanted to ask you, Sister Maliya, to someone who hasn't studied auditing or really understand how it works, how can you describe, why would something that happened before you were born, why would that have an effect on you?
Could you ask that again? Like, what exactly do you mean?
Well, I'm describing a prenatal engram. What does that mean? How does that have an effect on who you are today? Like what Brother Michael was speaking on.
Okay, so just aside from Dianetics, for example, so you know how, like, when a woman is pregnant, basically that's a very fragile time. I think that most of society understands to an extent that, okay, she's pregnant, that's the whole reason why they have time off, or, sometimes they're more lenient on pregnant women, or they don't have to lift certain things. I think that everybody pretty much gets the basic idea that pregnancy is a fragile time. But unfortunately, people don't understand exactly how fragile it is, because in most, Islamic societies and some other cultures too, when a woman is pregnant, that is a time when she should not be in stress at all. And it's sad because I've seen a recent statistic that said that the infant mortality rate amongst white women is 6.8. The infant mortality rate amongst black women is 13.2, which is double that of white women. And I was asked the question, why do we think that is? And I said that I think the reason why is because, of course, from an economic or worldly standpoint, it's, the access to resources and things like that. But it also has to do with the level of stress that women are under. People think that, I did good during the pregnancy. And what people fail to realize is that when you are an adult, so there's a lot of things that you have built up endurance for, but the stress that is put on you is equivalent to the stress that is put on that child. So when people say things like, oh, that baby can't hear you, they don't understand what you're saying. Every word, every feeling, every emotion is imprinted on that child. So when they're born, whether they understand the words that were said to them or not, which they're not going to, as they grow older, there's a saying in Dianetics that you can be educated into something and educated out of something. I could have grown up hearing my mother always say something, and I can remember it right now as an adult. But when I was younger, I could say, man, I remember when Mom used to say that, and I had no idea what she meant. But now that I'm older, I understand. So it is very possible for a woman to be pregnant, and if she's around a lot of cursing and around a lot of stress and stuff like that, and then people wonder when their child comes out, why is this baby so fussy, or why did my child grow? People say, oh, you're just like your mother. I don't really believe in that whole ideology anymore of like, that's just because you're just like your mother. A lot of it has to do with things that women are around when they're pregnant, and you can look at that in siblings. I mean, I'm very different than my sister, and my sister is very different than my brother. And even though, yes, it's due to our personalities and who we are, a lot of it has to do with the way that our mother was when she was pregnant. When my mother was pregnant with me, she was still working full-time jobs, and she was going everywhere. And as a result of that, out of all my siblings, I'm the one who's always on the go. I'm always moving. I'm always working. I'm always going somewhere and doing something. And people call me, Little Reese, which is my mother's name. But then my sister, she's the complete opposite. And, my mother was also very relaxed during her pregnancy. She had more time to sew and do what it is that she wanted to do. So my sister is much more like my mother in her older age. So a lot of things that women go through on a positive are imprinted on the child, but also, unfortunately, the negative. So a prenatal engram basically stems from if a mother is in an abusive relationship and say she just, the man slapped and said, you'll never be anything, you're horrible. Well, people wonder why their children grow up and they have a low self-esteem, and a mother can cry and say, I raised my child to be better than me. But the mother doesn't know that when you were pregnant with that girl and that man was abusing you, everything that you were feeling, every insecurity that you were feeling was imprinted onto that child. So when that child was born, your child doesn't even know why they're insecure. Your child doesn't even know why they feel the way that they feel until they get into Dianetics, where they can go back and they can say, wow, it seems like my mother was going through this when she was carrying me. So that's why pregnancy is very important. And they also say that for those of you who are listening who may be pregnant or may not know anything about Dianetics, you are not supposed to get audited while you're pregnant, because if you're getting audited and you're talking about things that you went through in your past, once again, that is being imprinted onto your child. So you just have to be very careful. A lot of young mothers out here are not aware of that. A lot of older mothers are not aware of that. So you have to be very careful how you treat yourself, how people treat you, and what you allow yourself to be around when you are carrying a child. And that's from early as 1 week to the whole 40 weeks. Everything that you feel is imprinted on what is in you. So that's why prenatal engrams are very significant, and they actually account for majority of our engrams, and they're actually the root of most of them. There's a concept in Dianetics of basic, and once you get to basic, that engram, once you blow that one off, all of the other ones are easy to blow off, because the root of your problems stems from what you went through when you were a baby or what you went through when you were in the womb.
Yes, ma'am. That was a wonderful explanation. So thank you so much for that. I really appreciate that. And that leads me to my next question for you, Brother Michael. I wanted to ask, how does a Dianetics section work? Like, do you have to go sit on a couch? Like, is it like therapy? How does it work when you go to get audited?
Yes, ma'am. It is therapy, and you start off by, making sure you're well fed, mainly with protein. When you get audited, there was one point in time where I was in a session for about 4 hours straight, and that session really drained me. So I was in the session, and I came out, kind of hungry and kind of drained. And it does, affect your nervous system as well. But you go into the session, you have a good night's rest, you're well fed, so you're not in the session thinking about food. And when you go into the session, it starts off with getting you comfortable. You're sitting in a chair. It can be done on a couch. It can really be done anywhere, but preferably in a comfortable environment, so the person is not, nervous about what's going on outside and there's no distractions. And you have a partner with you who is called an auditor, and you are called the PC or pre-clear, someone who has not been cleared yet of all of the negative effects that have taken place that affects their mind, and that's a general definition. And the person is there to help you. As Sister Maliya said, if I'm getting her name correct, she was going into the fact that the auditor does not tell you what's wrong with you. That person is not there to evaluate for you. That person is there to help you through what you're going to, experience, what you're going to relive. You're going to go back into your childhood. You're going to go back into your mother's womb. And by them being there with you, they're acting as an agent. They're not the sole cause of why you're getting relieved from what you're suffering from. That person is there to help you navigate through your mind. It said that we cannot do it on our own. So this is how the process works with a partner, an auditor. You're the pre-clear, and they just pretty much help you to get through the things that, you're trying to recall. I saw this, I heard that, and it can be anywhere between 5 and 10 years of age in the womb, or something that happened last week. It's hard to explain. You have to really see the video. So I'm trying to paint the best picture I could. But I want to say this, that 50% of the success of any therapy session comes from both people, comes from both the auditor and the pre-clear. Because, I can get in the session and lie. If you say, hey, let's go back to the earliest moment of pain or discomfort. If I don't really trust the person, I can make up something. It's hard to do that. You would be a very good liar. But you can actually block the success of the session by you not trusting the process all the way. You're going into the session doubting the tool. You don't really believe in it. Faith without works is dead, right? So first we have to have faith. Faith in who? Faith in the God who created us. Faith in the God who already knows who we are, already knows our past, knows everything about us. So it's not that I'm not trusting the person in front of me, or I'm having complete faith in the person in front of me. I trust in God. I trust in the Most High, by whatever name you call it. So the session is twofold, both the auditor and the pre-clear helping one another, and the auditor is there to help you to get through whatever it is that you need to bring up to completely get rid of the negative effects of. If I'm missing anything, Sister Maliya can definitely help me out. And I'm trying to paint the best picture that I can of how a basic session would go.
So, thank you, Brother Michael, and I just want to get into the next question. So, Sister Maliya, I wanted to ask you, how does Dianetics, based on what Brother Michael was saying, how does Dianetics really increased the compassion for the brotherhood and for the sisterhood?
That's a really, really good question, because I hear a lot of people say, I think I've told you, Sister Akila, but when I first started, I was the only one out of my family who was like, I'm not doing this at all, because, of course, the media has made the Church of Scientology look horrible, and they don't understand they don't understand that we don't practice Scientology, obviously, in the nation, because we have our own faith. But there's a lot of tools that people can use from each other's faith. The minister has said before, there's things that the church can get from the mosque. There's things that the mosque can get from the church. If people will put aside their differences, there's things that we can get from one another and we can use as tools. So I said that because that's how I felt about Dianetics. When I first got into it, I was just like, I don't know exactly how I feel about this, and, it's, telling somebody my business, and, it's from a different area. I felt the same way. It's from a different area. It's from a different belief, and I didn't understand anything about it. And then when I found out that we had to be audited by each other, I immediately thought about how our system works and how it's like, if certain things are reported, we deal with things certain ways. So I'm like, how are people going to entrust one another to tell their business and not get in any type of trouble or not get any type of judgment? And that's when the minister had said, first of all, with Dianetics, this is a whole completely different thing. And so if anything that is said in a Dianetic session is heard anywhere else, the person that is found saying something will be kicked out, period, the end. Because there is already a problem in the black community where we can't trust one another. So if that was to happen, that would just already break the problem that we have. So that's what made me feel a little bit more comfortable, was that there was a repercussion if confidentiality was not kept there. And to answer your question about how it strengthens the brotherhood and the sisterhood, I've seen it really help people get closer, because if this is my sister and I already love her and I already care about her, or if I don't know her like that and she's somebody that I always see every Sunday or every Wednesday, if I'm going to go into a session with her and I'm going to close my eyes and I'm going to trust her to hear what it is that I have to say, and because she's in a position where she's working, she cannot say or do anything else, because I'm crying with her and I'm talking to her about what I'm going through, you automatically are building an affinity with that person, because trust is a huge, huge, huge thing that through slavery and through the things that we have gone through as a black people has been completely broken. And unfortunately, that is the root of all of our problems, is trust. If you want to talk about we don't support each other's businesses, we don't have good relationships, every problem that we have has literally stemmed from the fact that black people have lost trust for one another. Black men have lost trust for black men. Black women have lost trust for black women. So Dianetics gives you the chance to say, okay, look, I'm taking this step of faith and I'm trusting you. And to ensure it, the minister put in place this law, this rule that if this information is leaked out or if it is talked about, you are kicked out. You're done, completely over with. And it also it makes people realize that I'm trusting you, and you know that me and you may not have the best relationship, and here it is, I'm taking this chance to talk to you. It makes you, they call you twins in Dianetics. So like if I'm auditing with my best friend, we become twins now, because we're sharing like problems, we're sharing like issues, and we're helping each other, not letting each other talk to each other without any influence, without any advice, and I feel like that is a valuable thing about Dianetics, and it's so needed in the black community, because I've seen it strengthen together sisterhoods that have been, I've seen, two black women be friends for the longest time, but throughout their whole friendship, they've had like ups and downs, the times where they talk to each other and don't talk to each other, and then they get the opportunity to audit each other, and it automatically just knowingly and unknowingly has broken this barrier that they had between each other. They don't necessarily see it all the time, but there is a natural barrier that's broken, because even though we're friends and we talk about everything together and we go places together, now that I have closed my eyes and I have trusted you with some of my information, and I know that you carry some information about me that is very valuable, and you can't say anything about it, it makes me trust you more. So, I mean, a lot of people, I've heard people joke around and say, like, man, what would I do if I got audited by my captain, or audited by my brother captain, or my sister captain, or sister who's over me? And the beautiful thing about this is that I have seen some captains, be able to audit some of the sisters in their class, and some of the sisters in the class trust their captains to audit them. And it's a really, really beautiful thing because it strengthens not only the brotherhood and sisterhood, but it strengthens the role of leadership, and it strengthens the role of authority, and it makes us come into the knowledge of what true authority is. Authority is not just me being over you. It's me also loving you and having this affinity for you and wanting the best for you. And I'm qualified to be in this position to help you. So Dianetics has a lot of great, the biggest benefit is affinity for one another, and you have a clearer mind to make the proper decisions of who you associate yourself with.
Yes, ma'am, and praise be to Allah. I really appreciate that answer because that is definitely so true, that when you have an experience and when you share an experience, especially a painful one or something that hurt you with someone, you, like you said, you automatically gain love and respect for that person because they see you. And for somebody who is being the auditor and you seeing a person, and you, like, when you look at someone, you can't see them. You can't really see into their mind. You can't see into their emotions. You can't see into their past. But when someone shares that with you and you trust them and they trust you, you now have built something that you can stand on and that you have gone through together. And that's what creates that relationship and that trust. And I just think that that is something that is a really, really beautiful thing. And I just want to, it looks like we have a caller, so I'm going to give them an opportunity to ask their question. The last four digits of the number are 1003. So you are live on the air. You can ask your question.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam.
Yes, my name is Brother Daweed from Chicago, Illinois. My question is to either person speaking. What words of encouragement would you give to those who maybe are not taking the Dianetics course because it can be painful? I know for me, my first time, it was very painful, and this when it was first introduced in 2010, I got audited, and it was very painful, and I didn't go back to get audited until like 2 weeks ago. So what words of encouragement would you give to any of those who may not be doing it because the process, it can be painful?
That's a wonderful question. So either of you can answer. I don't know if you wanted to go, Brother Michael.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, Brother Daweed, I would say, you know, if you heard Sister Ava the other day, I'm not sure, when she was talking about the health insurance going online to go through the process, and sometimes we have to go back and, you know, the woman who was speaking to us, Ms. King, was telling us that we should have patience with the online process to, you know, file for health care or whatnot from the so-called Obama care plan, but the Affordable Health Care Act. She said that it's not living up under Jim Crow. It's not being beat and slashed, or I forget all of her words, but it's basically not living up under the whip of the slave master. It's not the black codes. It's not being lynched, not being burned. So if it's none of those things, and we have already gone through those things, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan said, we are strong, we are powerful, we can survive, we can get through it. And the encouragement is, you are a God. You and I are direct from the mouth, the brain, the being, the source of Allah, the creator of all of the heavens and the earth. We have no birth record. We have no beginning nor ending. And Allah, in the beginning, when he created himself out of triple darkness, he destroyed the impossible. And that may sound like, you know, I'm just shooting over the head, but really it's really that. We are a people who are very strong mentally, spiritually, and physically, and we can get through any process that we enter into. We've already come through the womb. Like many of our parents, like the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan's mother, tried to get rid of him 3 times. He's still here. You know, so Allah is always with us, and if we trust him, and yes, we may have a session that didn't go all the way like it was supposed to. Remember, this is something being introduced to us. We're new to it. I was new to it. I've never heard of Dianetics or auditing before the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, never in my life. So I was new to it. But if we trust it, like you did, and go back, you went back 2 weeks ago, keep going, and learn that it's a process. Understand and learn that it is a process. It's not something that's going to happen overnight, So it may take 2 or 3 more times for you to really, really get to the point like, wow, this thing really works. I need to become an auditor. I need to encourage all the other brothers and sisters to finish the course. That's what I would say.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Well said.
And Sister Maliya, I also want to give you an opportunity to answer that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say that that's a really, really good question, and that's a really good point that the fact that, people do go through really painful experiences during this process. And I can understand exactly where you're coming from, brother. Like, that's so real. But I just want to say to you and to anybody else that has experienced any type of painful, experience through this process of Dianetics, it is very normal. And not only is it very normal, anything that is valuable, you've heard the minister say this several times, anything that is valuable, anything that is worth it in life has a difficulty factor attached to it. I mean, you have to think about simply, what if in the middle of your mother giving birth to you, she just decided she just wasn't going to push anymore. She just wasn't going to do this anymore. She was just going to give up, and it was just going to be up to whoever was in the room to figure out how you get here. So, there are painful things in life, and I do understand that is very different. Yes, there are 2 different types of pain, because mental pain is a whole different thing than physical pain. I completely understand that. But I just want to say to you and to anybody else who's experienced that, I, too, have experienced that as well, because you have to understand that Dianetics does not only deal with things that you remember. Matter of fact, most of Dianetics is uncovering things that you don't know about yourself, things that you don't know that has happened to you, things that you don't know that you have gone through that actually give you the reason why you went through the things that you do remember. So that was one of the biggest things I had to get adjusted to, too. A lot of times we, as human beings, we just think we know everything about ourselves, and we don't know anything about ourselves. And so Dianetics is also a humbling process, which is another reason why sometimes it's painful for us, because, we are not naturally humble people in every area. Say that we're arrogant or boastful, but in certain areas when it comes to ourselves, we have to be humbled to realize that you don't know everything about yourself, and it's okay. And I have my auditing experience was very interesting, because I kind of went into auditing finding out very painful things about myself that I didn't know. And, I had gotten discouraged, and I was like, I can't do this. I'm not going back to this. I don't want to do this. But because I know that the minister is not going to put us in anything that hurts us, that was my encouragement to keep going. That was my encouragement to say, you know what, I know this is painful, and I don't want to do this again, and I'm kind of hating it right now, but I know that this man wants me to do this because he knows what it will do for me. And every time I would think that, and I went back into Dianetics and got audited again, I would come out in a better session. So just know that through this process, you're going to have some sessions where you are bawling your eyes out and you're crying and you're coming out of the session. And just know that when you come out of a session, your auditor will never leave you completely depressed. You will leave a session thinking about it and hurt because of what you may have seen, but you'll never leave depressed. And if you do, then you just need to go back and get that. You need to immediately go back and get that audited again. You need to tell somebody, I left out of that session depressed, because that's not proper. So, if you ever go through painful auditing sessions, just know that, as long as you come out of the session understanding that this is what happened and it's okay, then just keep going. Just keep going. It's painful, but you just push yourself to keep going, and know that in order for a diamond to become a diamond, it had to start off as black coal and go through all this pressure, and, things had to hit it and chip away at it. It's life, and this is a beautiful technology that gets to the root of the problem and doesn't try to pass a prescription for the problem. It tries to deal with it. And so that I just wanted to point that out, that I do understand that it is not an easy process.
Thank you as well, Sister. Thank you.
Thank you so much for giving your response for that as well, Sister Maliya, because it's definitely good to hear the different perspectives. And that actually leads me to my next question. I was going to ask you, Brother Michael, why do you think that it's important that we're told that brothers should audit brothers and that sisters should audit sisters?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for that. There's a lot in that question, sis. I'm going to try to attempt to answer it from the perspective of Islam. It's almost the same as our classes, men with men and women with women. There's things that I may have gone through that would make me attractable in another kind of way to a woman in a session like that. And there's other things that would cause me to reject something coming from a woman dealing with my mother or whatnot, as well as with women. I think the protection is more so for the sisters. I really do. You can correct me if I'm wrong. Anyone can. The protection is more for our sisters. A sister could have been in an abusive relationship. Her father could have been her uncle, could have been rape, could have been molestation. Even though we go through some of those things as men, you don't want to jeopardize the women, especially in a close-knit family environment like we're in with brothers and sisters, and you want to protect as much of the sister and the brother as possible. These things that happen to us come out in session, and you could be auditing a brother's wife. You could be auditing a sister that another brother's in a courtship with. I mean, you have those things come up. It's none of your business. It's really made to protect the brothers and the sisters, particularly the sisters, as the courtship process, we're told, is to protect the sister, the virtue of the woman. And so this is the reason why we have this sent down. Plus it leaves an open field for the enemy to play in on the brothers and the sisters, though the enemy may be amongst us anyways, and they are. We don't worry about that. But in terms of going in to bring up things that the auditor, from the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, we are told to take these things that come up in session to our graves. We do not reveal what a brother has revealed to me in confidentiality that went into his past, whether it was things that he has done or was done to him. We don't reveal that. And so it's better for a brother to deal with another brother to protect the sisters, as well as a sister to deal with another sister to protect her and as well as us. I mean, we're a family, you know what I mean? But there's things that are in our lives that are not for, if you get married, sister, I mean, there's things in your life that's none of my business. It's your husband's business because he's the one that has to deal with you every day. I don't. So why would I get in on something that you're not willing to share? And in saying that as well, I think Sister Maliya touched on it. A person, if I have gotten audited, I can tell you whatever my experience is. I'm not restricted to give a success story, as they call it, or a testimony to say, hey, look, I was going through this and now, I'm free from this. If I'm willing to give that information as a testimony or a statement that the technology works, I'm free to do that, but my auditor is not free to do that. So we have rules and regulations that protect our brotherhood and the sisterhood, because without the brotherhood and the sisterhood strong, we really, really have a weak nation. That's what I would say.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. And Sister Maliya, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that, Sister Maliya?
Yes, ma'am. I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I was just saying, did you have anything that you wanted to add to that?
No, I really agree with what Brother Michael was saying. I just feel like when it comes to Dianetics, it is a very sensitive topic, and I say that because a lot of the things that you brought up today and a lot of the questions that you asked, I feel like it's really, really good for believers to hear this, one, because we're coming from personal experience. So I really appreciate a lot of the things that Brother Michael said, because you know, a lot of these things that we're answering is because we went through them. Every question that you have asked so far, and even what he just said, a lot of it comes from our personal experience and us feeling the same way that other people feel. Like, I don't want to do this. I feel hesitant about it. It's just that we took that step. And so I really appreciate the questions that you asked and everything that has been said, because it's also helped me too as an auditor coordinator, because I realize that this is very important to people, that it's important that auditors also get audited. Because, I mean, if you're constantly auditing someone else, you have to remember that you're also taking in what people are saying. That's another really good point. You're taking in what somebody else is saying too, because if I'm listening and listening and listening, yes, I'm helping them by listening to them, but I'm also soaking in everything that person is saying to me. So even though that may not have happened in my life the way that this person has said it, it still has content in it that can re-trigger something that I did go through. You know, if, like he was saying, he was talking about, you know, brothers auditing brothers and sisters auditing sisters. If I'm a sister, and like the minister said, there's so many women out here who have gone through being violated and have gone through being hurt. If I'm auditing with a sister and she's talking about something that she's gone through, it may not be the same situation. It may not even be remotely close, but because it carries the same content of something that I have went through similarly, it can re-trigger. It can re-trigger and it can re-stimulate me. And in that case, that's why it's always good to have a supervisor around. That's why it's always good to know how to properly end the session. It's also very good to make sure that you know the person before you audit them, if you're an actual auditor, this is, you know, because there's things that we have gone through that are similar that re-triggers one another. And that's another reason why the minister wants us to audit each other as, you know, gender-wise, because sisters can share the same struggle in some senses. Brothers share the same struggle in some senses. And like he said, if I'm a sister and I'm auditing a brother, me being there to help him through the hardest time of his life may hopefully make him feel like, oh, this is the woman I need to be with. She's helped me through so much. And it's not that. It's just that me being an auditor and listening has helped you overcome something in your life. Same thing with a brother auditing a sister. If she feels like, man, he's such a calm and brother who's listening and he understands where I'm coming from and what I've been through, you know, it can falsely make you attracted to that person. And the minister wants to keep it clear of that. And it's best that as a sisterhood and brotherhood, we strengthen each other. So those are just some things that I really think are good points. And the questions that you asked are things that we all have dealt with.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And I wanted to, I definitely think that is so, so true, that hero syndrome that we get when we're dealing sometimes with brothers or sisters that we think are powerful, have really been helpful to us. We can feel like, yeah, exactly what you just said. Oh, this is the person for me because they get me, but they're performing a service for the people. So when we do this with our brother and our sister, or we just do it if we're a sister, do auditing with a sister, or if we're a brother, do auditing with a brother, we really strengthen that brotherhood and that sisterhood. And I just think about how Minister Farrakhan said recently, think about how much better the world would be if our sisterhood and our brotherhood was tight, if it was strong, if everyone around you wanted to see you succeed. They were really going to help you in every way they could for you to succeed. If we weren't competing with each other, but we just had an affinity for each other, we loved each other, and whatever project this brother's doing, I support it. Whatever project this sister is supporting, or whatever project this sister is doing, I support it. And it's very, very important for us to begin to grow in that and see each other again as this is my brother, this is my sister, and I support them, I work with them, and I see them in me. And that's one of the things I know that I've experienced from not being an auditor, because I'm not an auditor, but from auditing, just feeling like, wow, like this person sees me and I see them. And you, depending on how you grew up, you might not necessarily see yourself and your brother and sister as they walk down the street, but I know that even in my personal experience, that has definitely shifted for me to really see myself in someone else. And I just think that's a really, really beautiful experience. And I wanted to ask you, Brother Michael, how do you choose an auditor? How do you know what brother in the mosque would you choose to be an auditor? How do you go about that process?
There is a way of properly twinning people up, but right now, because of the lack, I think, of the use of the tool, I would choose my captain, my brother, you know, preferably somebody in certain situations who you have a relationship with. I'm a young adult FOI, so, I would choose another young adult FOI. But I'm in the reality that I need help, and I recognize that I need help. I would choose the next brother that I see. Because when we trust Allah and we know that this tool has been revealed through the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, I can't worry about if this brother is going to spread my business or if this brother is working on behalf of somebody outside the nation. I can't worry about that. I trust the God. At the end of the day, I have to judge myself, and I'm using it because in the judgment of myself, I need to make sure at the end of the day that I am a believer, and my actions prove that I am a believer. And so this is the hour of self-examination, self-analysis. So in that sense, there is, yes, to a degree, you choose certain people, the brother I've been soldiering with, he knows me. Well, he really doesn't know me, but he may know something about me. We work together. That's the person who you go to first normally. But I've been audited by the student captain in Indianapolis. FOI in Indianapolis, I've never really been in that city for a year at no time in my life. But they were using our org here in the city of Cincinnati. They were coming down, hey, brother, I need someone to take in session. Hey, take me in session. I need help. I really don't care. Because at the end of the day, am I getting the help that I need to be a better Muslim, to be a better brother? And so the question is good because, you do want to choose someone at first because you're just now trusting it. It's new. But when you really, really begin to believe in the power of this tool and in the meaning of the brotherhood and the sisterhood, it should be brother and sister and sister, not specifically brother captain, brother student captain, and another brother student captain, brother student minister, and another brother student minister. Even though, you may have regional ministers or regional captains, and student ministers who may go with another laborer of their stature, of their level. In that case, that may be something a little different. But as far as the brotherhood and the sisterhood, let's just get audited. That's what I would say.
Yeah, so praise be to Allah. And see, I'm really glad that you said that as well, because that's something that is powerful in itself, that we're thinking, I need to find somebody who may be equal to me. Like if I'm a student minister, I need a student minister, and so on and so forth. But the thing is, there is no one really above us besides Allah. And if we really understand that I'm a sister and she's a sister, and whatever she's gone through, it's just going to strengthen our sisterhood. It's really going to be, I got your back and you got mine. And right now, it's kind of scary, it seems like, because it doesn't seem like that. Like there may be sisters or brothers that you're like, we're not really feeling or whatever, but it seems like through this technology, and when you really understand what somebody's going through, that maybe the personality that they're showing you is not theirs, it's them acting out of an engram. And actually, I'm going to have Sister Maliya clear that word for us. But, yeah, when we see that the reason why they behave a certain way towards me is because I remind them of somebody that did something to them or something else, we can really grow that affinity and really be able to serve each other in a way that God will want us to serve each other and to work with each other. So, Sister Maliya, we know that there's a little bit, part of really getting to know and understand something is really part of that is understanding the language. So I wanted to ask you, what is an engram and how can we avoid getting more of them?
Okay, so let me just say this. I don't have the book right here in front of me for the actual definition of an engram, but I do know what an engram is. So an engram, this is what Dianetics says that the ingredients for an engram is. And I call it ingredients, and a lot of us at the org or, that know Dianetics and the mosque, it's kind of like when we say ingredients, these are the contents, these are the things that make up an engram. And that can be, you have to have pain, you have to have a painful emotion, and then there's words. So, for example, if somebody is hit, or they go through, if they're like injured, and there's no noise, and there's no pain around, there's nothing going on, they may not necessarily get an engram from it because there's no command, there's no person around, there's nothing that can really like lock that in. You know, if you get hurt somewhere out by yourself, you may not even really think about it again. But people don't realize that when they get hurt or they go through painful emotions, it's the words that's said around you get an engram. And the biggest component of an engram is when you are not all the way analytically aware. So in order to get an engram, a part of your analytical mind has to be shut down. As you know, in Dianetics, many of you may not know, we have two parts of our mind, two minds for the purpose of just showing you a visual of what it is. There's the analytical mind and there's the reactive mind. The analytical mind is the mind that keeps things in order. It's the one that keeps memories in order. It's the one that keeps experiences and records everything that you've ever gone through in life. It's the part of your brain that just, you don't forget any smell, you don't forget any sense, you don't forget any touch, nothing. You remember everything. It's very analytical. It processes things correctly. The reactive mind is the more emotional. This is where the negative emotions and all of the things that you've gone through and all the weird experiences that you have gone through, that's where everything is stored. So, you know, you ever hear people say, oh, I don't like eating jelly beans, or I don't like going to this store, and you're just like, why? It's irrational to you, but to them it's very rational. But it's not, for me not to like to go to, I don't know, Target. I just don't like Target. I don't get good vibes from Target. That's irrational. Like, what is it about Target that is going to do something to hurt you? That's irrational. But I justify it by saying, oh, I just, you know, I don't like it. I don't know why I like it. That's because there is an engram there. There is something there that is blocking you in an irrational way from doing something that is not going to harm you in the first place. There are people who have engrams when it comes to relationships, people who stay single for a very, very, very long time. Over the years and throughout society, they have justified it by saying, you know, I just like to be by myself. I don't want to be bothered with anything. But come to find out, it could be an engram. It could be something that they went through earlier on in their life that may have told them to be alone, or, you know, you're never going to find anybody. So these things get rooted into your subconscious or your reactive mind, and they start to be the very thing that thinks for you. So the reactive mind, basically, it gets in the way of your analytical mind. The goal of Dianetics is to get you to think very analytically, your whole mind to be thinking analytically, to be thinking correctly. And if our reactive minds and our reactive banks are filled with engrams, it gets in the way of us being able to think properly. So if here's an example of an engram. When I was 5 years old, I was coming down the driveway and I flipped off of my bike and I fell over the handlebars and I was knocked unconscious. My family comes running outside, and while I'm unconscious, they're just like, oh, my God, is she okay? Oh, my God, she's never going to be able to walk again. Oh, you know, is she alive? They're throwing out all these things. Now, if I'm unconscious, my analytical mind is shut down. Pain shuts down your analytical mind. When you're in pain, to prove this, when you're in pain, you're not thinking properly. You see people in pain, they don't want anybody around them, they're not even thinking right. So when you're in pain, when you're knocked unconscious, your analytical mind is shut down, which means, in other words, your guard is let down. So every word, every phrase, everything that people do around you is now being dumped into your reactive mind. Now, when you come back conscious again, you don't think anything of it. You're like, all right, I'm fine. But then as you go on later in life, you may be at home and you see your child outside riding his bike and you start feeling nervous, and you don't know why you feel nervous. Or you tell your little girl, like, no, you're not allowed to ride your bike until I'm outside. You start doing irrational things around the incident that caused you the engram, and you don't know why until you go into Dianetics and you say, oh, my God, when I was 5 years old, I got an engram. I fell off my bike and I was unconscious, and, you know, my parents and my family were saying all these things around me, saying that I'll never be able to walk again. You know, and then you find out, oh, that's why I have problems with my left knee sometimes when I'm walking. You know, it's very, Dianetics really gets to the root. That's all I can really say, is it really gets to the root of this. And I'm not just saying it because I studied it or I saw it. I'm saying this because I have experienced this myself. There have been things that I have not known why I do this. Why am I afraid to, I don't know, speak in front of people? Why am I so afraid to go walk inside of Target? It makes sense to me, but then my friends are looking at me like, what is wrong with you? This is just an example. And then I find out when I get audited that, oh, I was, you know, when I was a young girl, I did, you know, the girl that used to bully me in school, she used to always see me in Target and maybe she beat me up. You know, in other words, Dianetics gets to the engram. The engram is the actual thing that's recorded unconsciously in your reactive mind, and it causes you to act irrationally. It causes you to act opposite of the norm, and it is caused from painful emotion, and it is caused from something that someone said to you. It can be physical pain, painful emotion, the words that somebody says, or the way that you have been continuously handled throughout your childhood or throughout any period of your life.
Yes, ma'am. And thank you for that. And I wanted to say, my understanding of the reactive mind is that it kind of, when the analytical mind shuts down, the reactive mind is just basically always there, but it's, like you said, recording everything that is happening. And it's almost like a safeguard for the future. And the engram is almost to, like, protect you from that kind of incident happening again. For instance, when you said the example of a child who flipped over their bike, went unconscious, in the future, when you are in a situation like that, you might be scared to ride your bike, or you might, like you said, have a child and say, no, you can't ride your bike unless I'm there. And it's very interesting that it seems that the reactive mind, when it records these things, it projects them back to you in a later experience that makes it seem really crazy to do something like that again. Like, why would I put myself in danger? So it seems really, really important. So I don't know if you could go a little bit more into it, Brother Michael, to just talk about why the reactive mind can be so powerful later after you're not in that same situation, like now you're a grown-up, but you still are feeling this scared feeling about riding your bike.
Yes, ma'am. Just to come right behind Sister, the reactive mind is, I do have a definition here for the reactive mind. Praise be to Allah. It's on this page. Okay. So basically, the reactive mind is the cellular level mind, which is not unconscious, but is always conscious. It's kind of like the subconscious, but as Sister explained, the mind that's always recording in the event that the being is subjected to emotional or physical pain. And it is the mind that takes in everything, smell, touch, taste, hearing, all of that. And if you notice in the definition, it says it records on the cellular level. Engram is a medical term, as it said in the video, if you watch it or get a chance to watch it. Engram is a medical term, which means an lasting trace on a cell. And we know that when we're in the womb, we start as a single cell, that cell divides, that cell then divides, and we just keep dividing, and the cells keep building, breaking down, and building back up. Well, every cell that divides into another cell copies everything from the one cell to the second cell, from that cell to the next cell. So everything that is recorded on the cellular level is made up in our being, is in our makeup as a human being coming out of the womb. And so the things that are recorded are later in life when they get restimulated. Sister gave examples of that, being restimulated, being sick, getting sick from eating some food, or riding in a car and having a bad car accident. Then the next person gets into the car. Anything that is similar in the present, in your and my present environment, that was similar during the time that your cells were recording the moment that your body was in physical pain, from the beating, the car accident, from the emotional words, the effects of your mother's mind, not wanting you, not wanting me, the father saying words and causing your mother to cry or be depressed, all of that, any negative emotion, right, is recorded. But later on in life, when you have similar things in your present environment that resembles the things during the moment when that pain was being recorded, those words were being recorded, that's a restimulation. That is what restimulates us and brings that engram back out of dormancy, being dormant. lying dormant until activated for the first time and then re-stimulated every time after that until we actually go into the auditing session and get rid of those negative effects. So that is a small example and a small picture of how things can be re-stimulated in us. We can take it from the specific level of being in a chair and bring it all the way up to black people in America. We're re-stimulated every day living in America. The black man and woman is re-stimulated. When we're on our jobs with white people, we naturally get re-stimulated when white folks say a certain, I know me as a black man, I worked at Delta Airlines before. I'm in the call center and white folks are calling, talking to me nasty. I don't take lightly to that. I get re-stimulated. Why? I mean, my mother wasn't white, my father wasn't white. But we have been through a traumatic experience living with the Caucasian. So there's things as a people, we get re-stimulated. Some of us get depressed. If you notice, you can bring the final call to a black man or woman. It can have the face of Trayvon Martin on it. It can have the face of Lavina Johnson on it. It could be an article about something that we're dealing with in our community and our people. Some of them get depressed. Some of them get angry. Some of them get upset. We just get re-stimulated because we have been living in America and we have not been fully relieved of the effects that the transatlantic slave trade has put on us. So that's a picture of how things can get re-stimulated until we actually confront it, address it, and get rid of it as a people, and yes, individually in these sessions that we call auditing.
Yes, sir. That was a beautiful explanation of how it works and how it just makes me think about why it's important that all of us get audited, because we are sometimes dealing with things that we don't even know why we get upset sometimes. And I know I had to call myself out the other day, like when you're standing in the store and somebody just rubs you the wrong way or literally bumps into you and you fly off the handle because somebody transgressed against you, but that's not how you would normally act or normally behave. That's an engram. Something that person has done is making you react in this irrational way. You go back later and be like, man, I didn't have to act like that. And then you try to rationalize it and say, oh, well, they shouldn't have came at me like that, or that wasn't cool, or whatever. But you realize that, no, that little voice in your head kind of tells you, like, no, it wasn't. I didn't need to react like that. That was too much. And when we start to get those little feelings, it's like, well, yeah, there's something deeper to this. And there's something that I can get out, that I can extract. And that's what will make you realize that you need auditing. Because I know for me, just personally, I kind of felt like, and that's why I asked the question, like, oh, I probably don't really need to get audited because I haven't been through any type of traumatic experience as far as just my parents, they pretty much protected me, praise be to Allah. Nothing really crazy or terrible happened to me. But when I could see myself in little instances getting really upset or acting differently than how I normally behave, I realized that's an engram. So as we bring this to a close, I want to ask you a question, Sister Maliya, and I wanted to ask you, how has your study of Dianetics and becoming an auditor translated in other aspects of your life? How has it helped you in other ways?
It's helped me because I actually have always wanted to be, and people have always looked at me as kind of like the type to be a counselor. I'm always, listening to somebody or trying to help somebody, or I've always wanted to do outreach type of things, and, basically in line with what we do in the nation anyway, but on a more personal sense, I've always kind of worked with helping young women or helping women of my age, or just being out there with people. And most people that know me know I'm a talker. I love to give advice. I love to help people. But Dianetics has really translated in that area of my life with what I want to do with my career. It has helped me tremendously because there are people that I now talk to and listen to and deal with. And because I have Dianetics, and because I know the technique, and because I know the different tools and the different types of auditing, that's another thing. There's different types, there's different ways to attack an engram. And because I know those different tools, I can in a situation where I'm talking to a young girl or I'm talking to somebody, I know which technique to use. So in the past, it was just translated into, I'm giving advice to somebody, I'm giving them tools from, the teachings, or tools from my personal life, or tools from just things I know, and I'm just giving advice, doing that. As I've gotten older and I've interacted with different people, I realize that is not always effective, and in most cases, it's not effective. So you have to know how to sit and listen, or now I ask questions. I don't just always give the advice. Sometimes I'll ask the question. Say, okay, well, how do you feel about that? Or what do you think about that? Or how does it make you feel? Because they don't know that what I'm doing is getting them to talk about it, but I know what I'm doing. So it has really helped a lot with making people look at themselves and be like, wow, I didn't know that I did that. I did that one time with somebody that I go to school with. I was sitting there and I just constantly kept asking, how do you feel? What are you thinking? And, I think this and I think that. They had no clue what I was doing to them, but we sat there for 2 or 3 hours and just asking them, how do you feel about that? What did that make you think? And what I was trying to get that person to do was compute their own problem instead of me telling them, compute your own problem, figure out your own advice because you can do it. I'm just helping you do it. So it's helped me in that area, and it's also helped me in my own personal life tremendously with my own issues, because if something pops up and I know that I react to something very irrationally, or I'm afraid of something, because I have Dianetics, I actually know, it's just because of this. Whereas before, when I used to have that anxiety, way before I knew anything about Dianetics, I just thought it was a problem that I was dealing with, and it was something that I just didn't know about. It's kind of like we talk about our people, why are they doing this? Why are they doing that? If somebody doesn't know what their problem is, then they just don't know what their problem is. They have no idea what they're doing is wrong. They don't even know that what they're doing is detrimental to their health. Dianetics has been that answer to a lot of people, especially in the nation, that, oh, wow, I'm actually, me acting this way is actually hurting me in my development. So it's really helped me in my personal life realize why I act irrationally to certain things, which is just a good thing to have. They actually say, for a good fun fact for you all, they actually say that the book Dianetics, The Modern Science of Mental Health by L. Ron Hubbard, just reading it alone knocks off some of the charge on your engrams and actually makes you aware, because now that you have read it, you have become educated into what your problem is. And so when things come up, you now know, oh, this is an engram, or oh, this is a problem. Now you're aware of what it is, whereas before you just thought that it was something a part of your personality. So it's really been beneficial for me and my family that I'm around. I mean, I'm around family members now, mom, dad, grandparents, and because I'm an auditor, I know what I know what their problem is, but I'm not telling them, and they know that I know. But it's not my place to say anything. I just know how to handle it. I know how to deal with it.
Right, yes, ma'am. And I think that is what you just said, Sister Maliya, that is so important. And I know for me, like I said, I'm not an auditor, but my father and my sister have been on course, and they've been telling me about it. So finally I got the book, and that is so true about what you said about giving advice. One thing that I've seen is that when people ask you for advice, most of the time they do not want you to give them advice. They want you to listen. And really with learning about Dianetics and studying what it is, what does it mean to know that this person is going through a trauma, we're all really wise enough to figure out what's going on with us. And most people want to figure it out. They don't want you to tell them what's wrong. They want you to listen. And with Dianetics, it gives you the tool to be able to just listen, in a productive way, not to just be quiet and not say anything or to talk too much, but to listen in a way that will actually help them to solve their own problems. So that's definitely one of my favorite things about it, that everyone has the power to heal themselves, really. It's just that we kind of walk them through the journey. We kind of walk with them so they're not alone. We're together. And that's another thing about building the sisterhood and the brotherhood. And I wanted to ask you the same question, Brother Michael, as far as other aspects of your life. Even if you share a similar experience, how has Dianetics helped you in other aspects of your life?
Yes, ma'am. Well, the first aspect is dealing with me personally, my anger over the years, my explosive anger at 15 years of age, and then my definitely not so good relationship that I have with my mother. And like the sister made a great point of becoming more aware when you read the book. You are studying yourself, as we are told about self-analysis and self-improvement. And I traced it all the way back to the womb. On a journey. I'm on a hunt to find that one engram. and I'm going to slay that bad boy super quick as soon as I find it, that will allow me to free up the anger and the resentment that I have toward my mother, which I assume comes from the thoughts that were in her head for me, maybe something that my father had put her through. And so I definitely have become more aware of myself and not know that this is not just something a part of my personality, but it's something that I have to deal with. And it's also something that all of us need to avail ourselves of, because when you talk about getting married, marriage is one half of our faith. In relationships, you should be able to tell the courtship mate, like, this is what I've been dealing with. This is my issue. Do you see yourself handling this issue, and just thinking about it and talking those things out, versus you going into a courtship and, answering certain right questions and missing certain things, and you getting in a marriage and, the marriage is just going up because, you missed something, or you really didn't analyze yourself before you got into it. And as an artist, I found that artists are very heavy targets for invalidation in the world. These are the words of L. Ron Hubbard. And being an artist, being the mind that I have, you get invalidated a lot. So helping me to relieve myself of that, when I get audited, I'm just tell you, when I get audited, I walk out of the session like I don't smoke no more. But it's a super high. When I walk out, I feel like, I got to go in the booth. I got to draw. I got to do something. Like, I have to do something creative. And so for the creative imagination, it really helps me to understand that, man, if I want to really, really get rid of all this garbage so I can create more and more and use the gift that Allah has given me, the more auditing I receive, the more great sessions I have, the more I free up the negativity, the garbage, and the evil that has been done to me, that I can be more of a better reflection of Allah's gift for people. And that's what I would say that the tool has helped me to do in other aspects of my life, even in the ministry. And all the student ministers, if we, student youth ministers, 1,000 new ministers, if we, availed ourselves of auditing, brothers and sisters, you would learn a tool that would help you to sit a brother off the street down and a sister off the street down and pinpoint an area in their life that is causing their downfall, and tell them that, hey, look, we got something for you that can help you. And so that's another subject for another time, but those are just some of the things that the tool has helped me in other areas of my life.
Okay, yes, sir. Well, praise be to Allah. And I definitely this is my last and final, statements and questions I wanted to ask. So, Brother Michael, I'll start with you. Do you have any advice for how people should and can get started if they haven't started yet with Dianetics, either in your local mosque or at the Church of Scientology? Do you know the protocol for getting started, getting on course?
Yes, if you have an auditing coordinator, you definitely want to go through them as far as auditing is concerned. But any one of us can go down to the church, get on you want to stay in contact with your auditing coordinator, because they should have knowledge from Chicago on what courses we are to take first. To be honest, I've taken other courses beyond Dianetics. The Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan didn't put a cap on the knowledge. But first course we should start with is Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health. You can get the extension course. The extension course is part of the Auditors course. So whether you have the funds to do the whole course at first or you don't, you can still start on the book, knock out the first part of the whole Auditors course, and then get the whole course, and then jump straight into the area that you would have been if you got the whole course from the beginning. That's the first thing that you can do to start. And you definitely want to be humble and come in the mind of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan, which is the mind of a student to learn, okay? Don't go down there talking about I got supreme wisdom. We know we have that. We're the fathers and mothers of civilization. Let's be humble and learn something that would benefit us and our people.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. It looks like we have a caller, so just really quick, let me let them ask their question as well. So the last 4 digits of your number are 0180. So You are live and you can ask your question.
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum salam.
This is Brother Allende out of Rochester. I had a question for Brother Michael because he was talking about how after he runs an engram, he gets this high and he feels creative and has to do something creative. And for me, I am somewhat of a very emotional person, so and I just started writing out like lyrics and spoken word to let go of some of that emotion. So I wanted to ask Brother Michael, do you find that, because emotion can sometimes help you write a song or a rap or whatever it may be, but do you find that after you have run an engram that you are actually more creative or less creative?
Yeah, it's more creative, brother. Anything that, because what happens is, even though the emotion is there to write, Allah, God, is the ultimate master of all emotions, right? Emotion is natural, but we are told that there's misemotions. You see what I'm saying? There could be a misemotion, which is a wrong emotion at the wrong time, okay? Like anger is an emotion, that's natural. But if we have anger in the midst of a bunch of people saying Allahu Akbar and everybody is happy, something is going on with us. You see what I'm saying? So we want to be in the right emotion, and it just frees us up to be more sane, when we're doing our craft, when we're doing what we do, okay? I would say auditing makes us very much creative, more creative. This is why L. Ron Hubbard set up the Celebrity Center in Los Angeles. He set up a center dedicated specifically to the artists of the world, because L. Ron was big on freeing the artists up from the invalidation of Satan's world so that the artists can be more sane to create and use their gifts for Allah God and for their purpose.
Yes, sir. Crazy to Allah. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Brother Michael, for answering his question, and thank you, Brother Inde, for calling in as well. So I'm just going to let Sister Maliya answer the same question as far as, so if anyone who wants to get involved with Dianetics, if you would give some encouraging and also a way towards moving one step closer to the course.
Like he said, I mean, if you are in the nation, of course, your local study group or mosque should have an auditor coordinator, and that auditor coordinator, you come to us and you would express your interest in getting involved in Dianetics. And basically, we pretty much will try to start you off with an extension course. The extension course is basically just reading the book and answering the questions, which is the major component towards the actual course of becoming an auditor. I personally didn't do the extension course. I just went ahead and did the entire Hubbard Dianetics auditing course to become an auditor, which meant that I kind of did the extension course along with the auditor's course. So the extension course is really great because what it is that you're just focusing on the book, understanding the book, comprehending the book, asking questions on the book, and answering questions. With those questions, you can take your questions, you get a workbook, and you'll turn your questions into your auditor coordinator. They can turn it into the org. It'll be graded and sent back to you. After you finish completing the whole book and the questions, if you decide that you want to become an auditor, then you would let your auditor coordinator know, and they will get you hooked up with the org, and you would have to go to the org and do your official training on becoming an auditor. If you're just interested in starting getting audited, well, it's easy. Like I said, once again, you just come to your auditor coordinator, and we will allow you to pick which brother or sister is available that you would like to co-audit with, and you go through a sign-up procedure. You sign up. Your auditor will be there on the day that they're available to audit you and the day that you're available to get audited, and you can just start getting audited. The minister wants the believers to get audited as much as possible whenever you can. For those people who are listening who may not be in the nation, the church is always open. We don't have control over who goes to the church and who doesn't. There are people that I know that really want to get involved in Dianetics. You can go straight there, and you can talk to them. They will introduce you to Dianetics. If you want to still kind of be under the the nation in a sense. Like, you want to identify yourself with the nation. That will help out too, because they know where you're coming from. So you can say, I know somebody in the nation, or I was introduced to this through the nation, and you could go there and they will give you the same courses. They will give you the same. You have access to the extension course. You have access to the Hubbard Dianetic Auditor course, and you can become an auditor that way. It's a little different pricing wise. You do have to pay for your courses, but it's available to anybody. So I ask anybody do it. Very soon you'll be able to do it through the mosque as well, whether you are in the nation or not. But it is open and available to everybody through the Church of Scientology. So.
Yes, ma'am. So I just wanted to take this opportunity to thank you all so much for being so willing to be on the call and really discuss this really important healing technology that we've been given so that we can use it and become healed, become better brothers and better sisters to our brothers and sisters, to see our people like they are as our brother and sister. So I just wanted to thank you, Brother Michael, 6X, and I wanted to thank you, Sister Maliya, as well. I'm truly grateful that you all came on the show. I wanted to thank all the people who tweeted, all the people who shared the event, all the people who called in and asked questions, and even if you didn't ask a question but you were listening, I'm so, so grateful for you. So in closing, I just wanted to say that this episode was brought to us by TravelAlly.biz, your one-stop shop for affordable vacations, cruises, passports, and weekend getaways, and that's TravelAlly.biz. I wanted to thank you all for tuning in. Now I'll leave you with this. If self-improvement is the basis for community development, then the solutions to all our community issues are within us. So I want you all to proclaim it today, and I would like to leave you all in the greeting words of peace and paradise. Assalamu alaikum.
Awake from the dream of the picture you painted. If you want it, proclaim it. Say it loud and proclaim it. Make sure you leave with something more than you came with. You will achieve, fueled by the will to attain it. So no more complaining, proclaim it.